Hello viewers, welcome to my channel. I'm Hashim Ali Khan. Now I'm going to start the new subject, income tax, for the assessment year 2021. I got many requests from my viewers, from my students, from my subscribers to start this subject, income tax, for the coming examination for the current assessment year 2021. So I have decided to give the videos for the benefit of you all. So watch the video till the end because the theory is very important. If you cannot be able to understand the introductory part of income tax, you cannot be able to solve the problems on income tax. The problems are based on the provisions. Now in this video, I am going to explain you the provisions of income tax, introduction part. So if you are new to my channel, I suggest you to visit the playlist of my channel. I have uploaded so many videos on different subjects, different topics. So select your subject, select the topic, watch the video till the end. Definitely you can enhance your knowledge. You can write excellently in examination. You will get a lot of confidence on your subject, on your field of study. So now I am going to start the subject income tax for the assessment year 2021. Now, see, in this video, I am going to explain the direct and indirect taxes, first part. Second part, basic concepts of income tax, agricultural income, income tax rules and exemptions, incomes exempt from tax, residential status, and incidence of tax. These are the topics I am going to explain you in detail regarding the introduction to income tax. In examination, a theory question may be asked regarding all these concepts. Apart from that, these are the basic foundation of Income Tax Act, of income tax subject. Without listening, without watching this video, if you directly go to the problems, definitely it will not be of much help. So if you want a good grasp on the topic, watch this video. So first of all, direct and indirect tax. First of all, I am going to explain you the meaning of the term tax. A tax is a compulsory contribution made by the people of a country to the government. The government will impose the tax on the people. Now it is the obligation of the people to pay the tax to the government. So simple words I can say, a tax is a contribution which is imposed by the government on the people of the country. And the people have to pay the tax to the government. So it is a contribution made by the people to the government. That is called tax. Now characteristics of tax. Now I am going to explain you why tax is applied, what are the characteristic features of tax. The first of all, imposed by the government. The tax will be imposed only by the government. The tax will be imposed only by the government. No other person can impose the tax. The government will impose the tax on the people. First feature. Second, the tax will be paid in cash. Earlier, in ancient times, the tax was paid in cash as well as in goods, in a commodity form. But nowadays, no country will impose the tax in kind. The tax will be imposed only in cash. Thirdly, to promote welfare. Actually, one of the objectives of the government is welfare of the people. The tax is imposed by the government for the welfare of the people, for the welfare of the people of the country. So the main purpose of the tax is imposed for the welfare of the people. Then raising revenue for the government. The government requires revenue for the purpose of administration, for the purpose of statutory requirement, for the purpose of development of the country. The government requires revenue. Without revenue, the government cannot function. The government discharges a number of functions. To perform those functions, tax is required, money is required. So revenue is required. So tax is one of the main source of revenue of the government for conducting the different activities. Next is legal collection. The tax is a legal collection. That means when a person has to pay the tax, it is compulsory, it is legally he has to pay the tax. He cannot avoid the tax because it's a legal obligation. We are living in a particular country, the government has imposed the tax, it is my responsibility, it is our responsibility to pay the tax. It's a legal obligation. Next one, element of sacrifice. One more characteristic feature of the tax is it contains an element of sacrifice. Sacrifice means when the person is paying the tax, he will not get anything directly in return. Because for any other expenditure, when we incur the expenditure, we'll get something in return. For example, when we purchase grocery, when we purchase the grocery, we are parting away our money and we are getting some goods. In the same way, when we purchase any commodities, you are paying something and you are getting something. But tax is such that we are paying something, but directly we are not getting something. We are paying the tax to the government is spending the money on the welfare of all the people. That means directly I am not getting any benefit. So there is an element of sacrifice because a person is parting away his money to the government without expecting any direct benefit to him. Next is not a payment for specific benefit. When you pay the tax, you are not paying for a specific benefit to yourself. When you pay the tax, you must expect that this tax payment is for the benefit of all the people, not specifically for me. Then imposed on income, wealth and commodities. The income tax will be calculated on the income of the people, on the wealth of the people, on commodities. The taxes will be applied on income, on wealth, on commodities. So these are some of the characteristic features of tax. Now I am moving on to the next topic called objectives for imposing tax. See here, why the tax is applied? Many people will have the question, particularly from non-commerce background student. They will think that why government is unnecessarily imposing the tax? Our hard-earned money, we have to part it with the government. Why to pay? So these objectives, here I am going to explain you the objectives why tax is applied. So broadly we can classify the objectives into traditional objective and modern approach. The traditional approach was the tax will be applied mainly to raise the revenue for the purpose of administration of the government. The government has to discharge its statutory functions, its administrative functions, its social functions. For discharging all these functions, the government needs revenue. The government will impose the tax, collect the revenue for the purpose of administration, for social purpose. That is the main objective of tax. Similarly, the government will impose the tax to reduce the disparity between rich and poor. The rich person will become more richer if no tax is imposed. The poor will always remain poor. So to remove the disparity between rich and poor, taxes has to be applied on the rich people, collect the money and spend the money on the poor people, so that the gap between rich and poor will get reduced. In the same way, the traditional approach was taxes will be imposed mainly to restrict the import, to promote the export. Similarly, tax will be imposed in order to restrict the consumption of undesirable commodities, like that. So the old approach was different. Traditional approach was different. It was a very narrow approach of objective of taxes. But nowadays, due to socio-economic changes, the present conditions, the present environment is entirely different from the earlier one. So today, the approach, the objective of tax has changed. Now, apart from the traditional objectives, the modern objectives are there for collecting the tax. The modern objective is the tax will be collected for accelerating the economic development of the country. One of the main objectives of the government is to accelerate the economic development of the country. For developing the country, the government needs resources, funds. So one of the source of fund is collecting the tax. Secondly, the government wants to increase the employment opportunities of the people. The government wants to remove the imbalances, regional imbalances. That means we have disparity in development in different areas. Some areas are more developed, some areas are completely backward. To remove this disparity of regional basis, the government is imposing the tax. Similarly, the government will apply the taxes for promoting the exports. and discouraging the imports to protect our domestic industries. Similarly, the government can impose the tax to reduce the consumption of undesirable commodities like liquor or cigarette, which are harmful, injurious to the health of the people. The government want to reduce the consumption, restrict the consumption by charging more taxes on these undesirable commodities. So many objectives are there. For that purpose, the government needs funds. The government will apply the tax among the people. By collecting the tax, the government can be able to perform their functions. The functions, administrative function, statutory functions, social functions, many activities the government will perform with the help of the funds collected from taxes. These are the objectives of taxes. Now I am going to explain to you the types of taxes. Taxes are of different types. We can classify the tax into different names. Now there is some technical meaning of these different types of taxes. First one is duty. A duty is a tax which is imposed on production of goods. On production of goods and on import and export. For example, the government will impose the excise duty. Excise duty on all the goods which are produced in factories in the country. So as soon as the producer produces the goods in the factory, excise duty will be applied. The producer has to pay excise duty on the goods produced in the country. Similarly, the customs duty will be paid when the goods are imported or exported. So export duty, import duty will be applied when goods are exported or imported. These are called duty. Next is cess. Cess is a specific tax for a specific purpose. For a particular purpose, tax is levied. So that specific purpose tax is called cess. The example of cess is education cess, health cess. The government will collect the tax for the purpose of health, for promoting, for improving the health facilities, health department, education cess. The government will impose the tax mainly to promote, to develop the education sector. So when the tax is collected for a particular specific purpose, it is called cess. Next is surcharge. Surcharge means a tax on tax. When the government requires specific fund, short-term fund for a specific purpose, for a short period of time. For example, the government is in need of funds for a short period. Immediately the government needs funds. The government will apply surcharge, tax on tax. So normally surcharge will be applied only for higher income groups, not on lower income groups. For example, if a person, individuals total income during a particular year is 50 lakh or more. So if a total income of an individual exceeds 50 lakh up to 1 crore, 10% surcharge will be applied. If a person's total income exceeds 50 lakh and up to 1 crore, then a surcharge will be applied 10%. Similarly, if the person's income exceeds 1 crore to 2 crore, 15% is the surcharge. If the income exceeds 2 crore to up to 5 crore, 25%. If the income exceeds 5 crore, then 37% will be the surcharge. The rate of surcharge will differ as the income increases. So up to 50 lakh rupees, no surcharge. These rules I am explaining for the current assessment year 2021. Right? So this is called surcharge, a tax on tax. Octroi. The octroi is the tax which is applied when goods are entering into our jurisdictional area from other states. For example, our state is X. Some goods are bought from Y state to X state. That means as soon as the goods are entering our territory, our state, entry tax will be paid. The octroi is also called entry tax. The tax which is imposed on goods which are entering into our area. Similarly, terminal tax, it is opposite to octroi. When the goods are moving away from state, our state, to other states, so at the time of leaving the goods, the tax will be applied. That is called terminal tax. Toll tax. Toll tax will be applied on vehicular movement. When cars, jeeps, buses moves from one area to another area, so the road authorities, the bridge authorities, they will charge the tax because your vehicle is moving from our road, from this particular road, from this particular bridge. So government will collect the tax when the vehicular movement is there from one place to another place, on cars, buses, jeeps, etc. These are called toll tax. So these are the different types of taxes collected. Now, classification of tax. Taxes can be classified broadly into direct tax and indirect tax. This is very, very important. Taxes can be broadly classified direct and indirect. A direct tax is a tax which is imposed on a particular person and he alone has to bear the burden. He cannot shift the burden to any other person. Example, income tax, wealth tax. When a person's income exceeds the basic exemption limit, I'll tell you what is basic exemption limit. So when a person's income exceeds basic exemption limit, he has to pay the income tax. He cannot shift the burden to any other person. The tax is imposed on that particular person. He alone has to pay the tax. The burden cannot be shifted to any other person. That is called direct tax. Example of direct tax is income tax, wealth tax. Income tax, if the income is exceeding the basic exemption, he alone has to pay. If the wealth of that person is exceeding the exemption limit, he only has to pay the tax on his income, on his wealth. Indirect tax is a tax which is imposed on one person but borne by another person. Imposed on one person, but the actual liability, the burden will be borne by another person. This is called indirect tax. Indirect taxes are also called commodity tax or goods tax. The taxes which are applied on commodity like sales tax, service tax, profession tax and excise duty. These are called indirect tax. Example, the sales tax will be collected from the seller. The government will impose the sales tax on the seller. The seller will pay the tax, but the seller will put the burden on the consumer. I am the seller, I am having a shop, I am selling electronic goods. The government is imposing sales tax on me. I have to pay sales tax from my business, but I will collect the sales tax from the product which I sell. The price of the product includes the cost price, the profit margin and the taxes. Suppose if I purchase an AC, the cost of that AC is, let it be 50,000. The 50,000 includes the cost of production of AC, the profit margin of the seller and the taxes imposed by the government. So the taxes are hidden in the price of the commodities. So it will be borne by the consumer but paid by the seller. This is the example of indirect taxes. The government will resort to both direct taxes as well as indirect taxes. That means no country will depend only on direct taxes or only on indirect taxes. Both the taxes will be used by the government to collect the revenue. And both the types of taxes will have some merits and demerits. Both types of taxes have merits as well as demerits. Then canons of taxation. Canons means the directive principles to be followed by the government in making taxation policy and imposing tax on the people. Because the tax consists of some sacrifice among the people. The people will not like to pay the tax. So taxes should be such that people should be encouraged to pay the tax. They will not feel any pinch. They should not feel any sacrifice. Minimum sacrifice should be felt by the taxpayer. So what are the directive principles to be followed by the government while making a taxation policy, while imposing the tax on the people? Those are called canons or principles of tax. So Adams have given some canons of taxation. That means what are the principles to be followed while making taxation policy? The first canon is canon of equality. The canon of equality says the taxes should be equal to the income. That means higher income people should be imposed more taxes, lower income people should be put to tax less taxes, and the people who are not having much income, very low income, they should not be put to tax burden. That means the taxes should not be equal among all people. The tax will depend on the ability to pay the tax. The people who are having more ability to pay the tax should pay more taxes. The people who are having less ability should pay less taxes. Then canon of certainty. Certainty means how much tax to be paid, what are the provisions regarding, what is the rate of tax, what is the time of payment of tax. Everything should be clear to the taxpayer. The taxpayer should not be in chaos. There should not be any confusion in the mind of the taxpayer, in the minds of the taxpayer regarding the payment. Everything should be clear. It should be certain. Third one, canon of economy. Canon of economy says that taxation should be economical to the government. That means amount spent to collect the tax should be minimum. What will happen if the expenditure incurred on collecting the tax is 100 rupees and tax collected is 75 rupees? So what is the use of collecting 75 rupees tax when we are incurring 100 rupees on collecting the tax? It is not economical. Economical means we have to pay less amount. Less amount should be spent to collect the tax. This is canon of economy. Canon of convenience. The taxes should be conveniently imposed. That means the tax should be imposed only when the person is having the income. At the time of having the income, then only tax will be imposed. Unnecessary restrictions, unnecessary friction or any disturbance should not be given to the taxpayer. He should pay the tax conveniently when he is having the time. That's why Income Tax Act has imposed advance tax, TDS, all these things, so that it should be convenient for the taxpayer to pay the tax. So these are the canons of tax. So in this video, I have explained you regarding the meaning of the tax, characteristic features of tax, objectives of tax, types of tax, classification, and lastly, canons of taxation. So I'll continue the discussion in the next video. So if you like the video, if you are satisfied with my lecture, please share it in your group, in your friends, so that more students can be able to watch this video. And give your comments, feedback on my lectures. And subscribe my channel if you have not yet subscribed. I'll continue the theory in the next video.